I started the spring by starting my garden. We focused heavily on vegetables this year, but we also wanted to grow some local and rare flowers. And of course, I'm still working on additions to my poison garden. I start all of my seeds inside, usually in a very sunny windowsill with indirect lighting. Some plants germinate easier than others, but they all take patience and perseverance. I started these seeds in March, and I will admit that was a little early for some of them, so I recommend paying really close attention to the planting instructions. The nice part about starting your own seeds is that if you do plant too early and start them too early, you can always replant and grow more. Starting plants from seeds and scratch makes gardening so much more affordable. Seeds are often cheaper than mature plants and often a lot more accessible. You can order them online, you can find rarer plants, and if you pay attention to planting zones, sometimes you can even grow your own favorite plants from different countries. However, I recommend for every exotic plant that you decide to grow, please do plant local plants as well. I do have a locally based witchcraft practice, so it is important to me to honor my locals in any way that I can. Antiquing is a favorite cozy pastime, especially as we transition seasons. You can find so much at an antique store. It is extremely economical to thrift for clothes, for furniture, for supplies. Books, of course, one of my favorite thrifted items. And thrifting in your witchcraft practice is especially fun and magical. I really enjoy finding tools that are secondhand. They have such an incredible energy about them, something that cannot be replicated by a mass-produced item. I love shopping small, local, and handmade, and especially secondhand. Quick unboxing of a beautiful package that I got from Silverfern crystals. These items are from a handcrafted Bavarian German witchcraft store, and they couldn't have been more beautiful. The head witch in charge is Ella Harrison, who is here on YouTube. I love her content, but now I absolutely love her handmade items too. Spring quickly began to break ground. The first crocuses and snowdrops of the year burst forth, heralding in new growth and new beginnings. We are on our way to a Highland Cow Petting class. That's what I think it is. I guess we'll end up finding out what it actually is, but we're going to be seeing Highland cows, and if you know me, you know that I love Highland cows. So it's a bit rainy and drizzly and gloomy out, so perfect Highland weather for the cows. So I'm excited. Yay, cows! Being up close and personal with such large and majestic animals was so incredibly cool. These cows have such huge personalities, and I fell absolutely in love with them. This cow in particular became my new best friend. She was so sweet and gentle with me. She probably knew she could throw me over that fence if she wanted to, but all she wanted was a good scratch.
And the tougher you brush, the more she's gonna lean into it, because you're brushing like cowhide.
Oh my goodness.
Loving it.
We stuck together like glue for the rest of our time in the pen. Instant best friends. I don't know, this cow's giving Labrador energy.
Now you all want one, right?
Well, I wanted one before.
Good stuff, huh?
Hi. This is kind of just going to be my stream of consciousness thoughts about bone throwing, curating a throwing kit, my first impressions, my first thoughts. This is really one of the first times that I'm working with this kit that I very recently put together. This is tapping into knowledge that I really just learned, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm an expert or anything. These are just my kind of first impressions for you. I had the pleasure of attending the Witch of Wonderlust's throwing kit curation workshop in February, and it was just so good. It was such a good workshop. It had, a ton of attendees, a ton of great people. Everybody was super engaged and interested and willing to chat and share their thoughts and interests, and I love like an active classroom like that. Also, the Witch of Wonderlust is one of my favorite YouTubers. I've been watching Olivia for a really long time. She's very inspirational. I love her content. I love listening to her talk. So this was a really great opportunity to tap into a workshop that I really wanted to attend, and like discussing a practice I really wanted to learn, but also I got to learn from a teacher that I really admire. So let's get into it. I got my throwing kit here. We call it a throwing kit, but I really just threw it together because I don't mean to sound like casual about that, because there's nothing obviously casual about divination practices. But when I say I threw this together, what I mean is that I immediately knew that these pieces belonged in a throwing kit for me. I knew I wanted to learn the practice, the art. I knew that these pieces that I had been just collecting had functions and spiritual functions beyond just sitting on my altar. I love an altar decoration. You've all seen my altar. I love an altar decoration. I love a trinket. I am a crow. When it comes to collecting things and putting them on my altar, I love an aesthetic. But these pieces are very meaningful for me, and I'll go through why and how I got them and all of that. I just feel elated and so happy that I was able to find a place for these specific pieces in my practice. And some of them, like I said, some of them had just kind of been sitting on my altar. They were such powerful spiritual pieces that I wanted to work them into something. And I'm nothing if not a fan of functionality in my practice. There will be pieces of string, pieces of twine that I'll pick out of a grocery bag that we accidentally dropped in, or a package that part of packing materials, and I'll be like, I can reuse this somehow. I can use this twine in a spell. I can use this cord in a spell. Like, the amount of crow energy that I have is, well, I was gonna say comical, but it's bordering on hoardery. But let's stick to the positives here. Let's get back to the topic here that we're discussing. So, my throwing kit. Let's just start with what I'm holding in my hand right now. So this piece, it is a rock from Wales. I believe it's from a beach in Wales too. This rock was brought back from my dear friend when she went to Wales just before she met me in Scotland for my wedding. Really, really meaningful piece. I usually always ask my friends when they go on trips, can you bring me back a rock? Can you bring me back a shell? But usually a rock. I love a rock. I have a lot of rocks, lots of shells. I'm just looking around here, lots of bones spliced throughout my altar space. I'm actually looking at a rock right now that is not part of my throwing kit because this is part of my spirit altar. This is actually from the fairy pools on the Isle of Skye in Scotland, and it is, I pulled it right out of the pool. It was one of the most unique looking pieces of rock that I had seen. I asked for permission to take it back with me, and I got a very clear yes. So this to me holds like good folk energy, good neighbor energy, if you know what I mean by that. It's a really treasured piece. So anyway, back to this one. Crowbrain's happening in real time. My rock from Wales, very, very treasured piece because I am really looking forward to visiting Wales, I hope sometime soon. It is an ancestral destination. My grandmother's family on my father's side is, her mother's family is from Wales. So my great-grandmother's entire family is Welsh. Almost, very, very close in their immigration journey between, when my grandmother was born to when they came here. So Wales is a very high destination on my list. So anyway, this rock holds so much energy for me. It's warm. It just feels like a hug. If that makes sense from a rock, it just also feels like mystical and mystery, and I like this rock a lot. All right, next. Predator bone. This was my first piece that I just grabbed and was like, I need this to be front and center in my throwing kit, basically. I keep calling it a bone throwing kit, but it's not just bones. It's not going to be just bones. It's not intended to be just bones. This one was immediately what I picked up. Part of the workshop, discussed obviously curating your own kit. That was the whole point, but there was a lot of, application and techniques, history, a lot of context that we learned about as well. And at one point, Olivia told us to go grab a piece, any piece that we gravitated to, and what did it feel like, basically? Write down what it felt like. Hold it in your hand, kind of work with your senses. What does it feel like? I held it in my hand. I immediately felt this just evoked the energy of freedom. And also on the positive side, freedom, on the negative side, escape, right? Also decision making. Predators always have to make very quick decisions. I mean, so do prey. Whenever I think of decision making, I think of wolves, coyotes, foxes. We don't have wolves on this property, but there are coyotes and there are foxes, and there's always a lot of scuffle around their prints. When I see them, I see their scat, or I see the bones they leave behind, the dead animals that they leave behind. Usually that will be the night before, validated by me hearing them, or me seeing a fox in the backyard or something in the backwoods. From what I see on the ground the next day, there's always a quickness to that. So I felt that the quick decision making was a good meaning behind this. I feel like oracle pieces can evoke multiple meanings, if that makes sense. They, depending on which ways they fall, depending on, when you have cards, depending on, if it's what the context of the reading is, essentially, I think there could be multiple meanings ascribed to pieces, especially with these throwing pieces. When you're taking bits of animals, bits of the earth, there are obvious meanings you could ascribe to that. So another meaning that I ascribe to this is local spirits. I work with the fox spirit very closely. That's a predatory spirit. Everybody knows how much I love my stags. And stags can have obviously aggressive tendencies, but not really a predator when it comes to hunting down other creatures, right? This feels like quick decision making. This feels like plotting freedom, plotting an escape, connecting with the local spirits in the land. Acorn. This is an oak acorn from our very, very large tree outside. I'm looking at it right now. One of the biggest trees on the property, hundreds of years old. Actually, our mailbox is my grandfather nailed our mailbox into it. That's how old this tree is. And this tree is such a life giver. I love oak for like its connection with Hecate and with Irish spirits and Irish mythology. Oak is just such a strong, beautiful tree. I feel like it's almost the protector of this property. I'm just like staring at it right now, just admiring it. I love you. But what I love most about this tree is that it gives so many acorns every year. And, you know, we see acorns of all different sizes coming off of this tree. These acorns feed so much wildlife. They feed the deer, they feed the squirrels, the chipmunks. They feed a multitude of animals every single year. And it's just really nice to see them all gathered and, you know, getting their hoard. Yeah, so I feel like this is a life-giving piece, life-giving with life-giving symbolism. And this is one of the last acorns. I found this a couple weeks ago. This was missed somehow by the squirrels, and it had just snowed, and the snow thawed, and you know, I would never take away food sources from them, but this one just might have been too small for them or something, and it was left behind. And I really liked it for connection to earth spirit and earth energy. And we know that I love the earth and I love earth energy, and I work very heavily in earth energy. That's like my main element that I work with. So love that. And I mean, you know, I hold space for the fact that this is also earth energy, but this also feels like travel to me. And then kind of on that same vein, this is a hagstone. This is a natural hagstone from Loch Ness in Scotland. And my very dear friend picked it up for me the day after my wedding, and she gave it to me then. It was just a very sweet thing that she did. My friends that were in my wedding were just, you know, the dream team. So like the support, you know, them coming all the way out to Scotland for me and having a great time, getting to see the sights themselves, getting to experience things and then share it with me as I experienced different things. You know, it was just a dream trip. Hagstone from the shores of Loch Ness. This was especially meaningful because I didn't get to visit Loch Ness. I drove all around it on a tour, but we didn't really get to go down to the shore. And the day that my friends were able to go, my husband and I were like stuck on the train because we didn't have a car. So we had to take trains all the way back to the town that we were meeting everybody at. So it was like kind of a tough, crummy situation for us. So I would have loved to have been able to go, but the opportunity did not arise. However, you never know, may arise soon. So I may be able to bring back a rock that I find for my friend and give it back to her the next time I'm able to visit that beautiful country I love. So anyway, hagstones, divinatory, in my opinion. I feel like they're divination tools. They connect us with other worlds, other portals, and I have always read little bits of lore about Loch Ness being like, you know, some kind of portal. And I say that, you know, with a lot of, not only a lot of reverence for Scottish culture and Scottish mythology, but also I understand that that's like kind of the tourist shtick, right? But, you know, being an Outlander fan, I'm sorry, Scotland, I always have to plug it. Something that was one of my favorite parts of the book was that Diana Gabaldon, I'm going to get nerdy here, connected the Loch Ness Monster with Claire's time travel as well. So there's a point where Claire and the Loch Ness Monster like meet face to face, and that was something that was not included in the show. So if you have the opportunity to read Outlander, the book, even if you just read the first book, it's so worth it. It's a fantastic book. It's a fantastic series, but you know, I won't push my luck there. You know, I've read these like various stories throughout the years about how, you know, there's this conspiracy theory that the Loch Ness Monster is a dinosaur traveling through Loch Ness as a portal to modern times, or modern times at that point where that mythology was being written and orated. I kind of love that. I kind of love the idea of Loch Ness being a portal and the Loch Ness Monster being a dinosaur, just popping in to say hey. This piece is very, very meaningful to me. This is, from what I understand, and please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, because I don't crochet, but from what I understand, this is a crocheting needle. My mother has told me it's made of bone. So this belonged to my grandmother. And I actually just repaired it recently too, because it was glued together with some 1950s glue. But we found a very well-preserved crocheting needles in a sewing kit from her, which was so meaningful because my grandmother was so meticulous about preservation. The fact that this whole house is so preserved so well and everything in it, we have coffee cans from like the 1950s and 1960s and 70s. So really funny. We have a lot of vintage like tools and things like that. I just immediately gravitated towards this when I was looking through my grandmother's supplies with my mother, and it's so beautiful. I don't know what it's for. So that being said, I do think, I obviously know I need to educate myself on crocheting because this was clearly something that was important to her, and I'd like to make that connection deeper. Anyway, a crocheting needle from my grandmother, and if there's anything that I said that's incorrect about that, so for someone who knows nothing about crocheting, if you know something about crocheting, please feel free to educate me in the comments or send me a DM. I would love to hear more about getting into crocheting. But this piece, for me, feels very much like ancestral connection, ancestor work. Literally, it's a tool. I know I gotta be careful with how hard I throw this. That's another thing too, is learning the throw. I wanna get something that's a little bit softer to throw from, because when I throw, these just like dance around in there and I don't want anything to accidentally break. This is probably one of the most meaningful pieces in the kit so far because it's from my grandmother and she's like one of my favorite people that ever walked this planet. So really, it's really nice. Shout out Grandma. Skeleton key. I feel like every throwing kit has to have one of these. She says this being her first time curating a throwing kit, but from the pictures that I've seen, from the reading that I've done, there seems to be like a gravitational pull towards skeleton keys being in throwing kits. And I feel like that is totally valid because what does a key do? It unlocking your potential, unlocking doorways, road opening. This also is a piece that I took off Hecate's altar. I get most of my tools from secondhand, vintage, antique shops, thrift stores, Salvation Army, Goodwill. This I found secondhand. It is well worn. I cleaned it up. These pieces have all been cleaned. Don't want to bring any energy in that shouldn't be there. This is a link to my patron goddess Hecate that I do a lot of work with and for. Yeah, I felt like this piece needed to be in there. I felt like she needed to have some representation, and she has a number of other keys on her altar, so probably fine to donate one. And then some little shells. I know this one is from Sandy Hook, and I wanted to put it in there because I think it's such a beautiful little baby shell. Sandy Hook is literally littered with these shells, and I think it's one of the prettiest shells ever. I really love Sandy Hook. It's like becoming one of my favorite beaches to go to. It's just so pristine and gorgeous. Support our national parks. I have this huge love and affinity for and connection with the sea. I think it's a huge part of my earth-based practice is this connection to the ocean. Also having like this reverence and connection for earth, sea, and sky magic, and those three liminal places very in line with Irish mythology as well, which is the culture I'm trying to reconnect with through my roots and my ancestry. Gotta have a couple shells in here. I think my friend grabbed this one in London for me. I had to add this one in as well. That's the kit for now. So I guess let's talk about my next steps for the kit. Okay, so I have my kit resting on a platter with some local juniper. My Juniperus virginiana plant kindly donated some of her branches for this, and that's always the plant alley I go to for cleansing, purification, consecrations, things like that. But the point of this is that with the pieces that I have now, I plan on consecrating them, making them sacred, making them holy, purifying them to be part of this divinatory kit in which I connect with spirit, unlock messages, things like that. I always try and consecrate the tools that I use in divination work prior to integrating them into my practice. I do this very simply. I essentially lay them out on either salt or juniper, sometimes both. Sometimes I make like a juniper salt mixture. I've talked about this before. Juniper is a very important plant ally in Irish mythology, so I try to include her in almost everything that I do, to be honest. I cleanse with her, I consecrate with her. She is one of my strongest and most protective plant allies. In addition to the ancestral aspect to that, I also have a juniper tree right outside. So I tend to her and she tends to me. And this juniper, American juniper, Juniperus virginiana, is indigenous to the eastern part of North America. So this is a very local and centralized plant. This is a younger tree. So this is something that I think probably took seed from flying through the air, but just kind of by luck and happenstance did this tree fly onto our property and root. So that being said, the juniper that is indigenous to Europe and the UK and the northern islands, Juniperus communis, that's common juniper. So this one is a little bit of a different variation, but it's still related. So I use this one, and I also use common juniper as well when I can get my hands on it, but this is what I have access to. As a folk witch, I use what I have access to, what is right outside most of the time, especially since I have such a strong draw and connection and relationship with my local land. So, consecration. I lay these tools out on a bed of juniper, and I'm going to pray on them and open myself up to spirit, ask that these be, purified, and make them part of my kit. Welcome them to my divination toolkit. This is not like a super common thing for me to do because I don't really work with a lot of divination tools. My main tool of divination is basically this oracle deck. This is the Memento Mori oracle deck by Claire Goodchild. It is like my favorite oracle deck that I've ever had. I've used it so much in my ancestral reconnection journey. I'm a big fan of oracle. I honestly like it better than tarot, but there are some tarot decks that I have that I just am in love with, and I really should add those to my altar space here, so stay tuned. Maybe I'll talk about my decks. I've had a lot of decks, and I used to just buy a deck for every city that I visited. I just was accumulating so many decks and not using them, spending money where I didn't need to spend money. Why not save that for someone who is looking for their first deck? This is probably the only other oracle deck that I work with besides the Memento Mori deck, is the Woodland Wardens deck from Jessica Rue. It was a gift from my beautiful friend. I'm obsessed with it. This is really what I gravitate to when I work with my land spirits. But here's the problem, is that I don't really do divination a lot. I do it for really specific things, and I want to get better at pulling cards more often. I just don't gravitate to it. And if I don't gravitate to it, I just don't do it. I do more spell work than I do divination, which has to change because I really should be divining in tandem more with spell work. We'll do better. So that's pretty much the extent of my divination routine. So this is very new for me. And the fact that it's all almost found or free items or gifted items is just so glorious. It aligns so much with my folk practice that it's not even funny. It's so precious to me just to be able to pick stuff up off the ground, and this is part of my divination kit now. This is a magical tool. This is my wand. This is this is that. This is whatever, So I like that. Hi friends, I've talked to you a lot about how I live rurally, and today you're gonna see it. This is the backyard, enclosed space of the property. This is where we do all of our gardening and hanging out. As you can see behind me, we have a nice pergola that we sit under, and there's actually grapevines that grow over it. Can't really see them too well now, But I just cleaned up a lot of the roofing area this past week, so it should be very open and airy for when the grapes start to bud. So today I'm gonna be focusing on clearing probably that area, and I'm just gonna let the camera roll. I had aspirations this week of cleaning up the garden beds area, as you can kind of see around me a bit. I can't clean those areas up yet because a lot of our pollinators are likely hibernating under them. The ground has not yet reached 50 degrees here on the mountain, so I don't want to do anything to put those very, very important creatures in our ecosystem in jeopardy. So I'm gonna give it a little while, probably do that closer to April. But right now I'm just gonna be cleaning up this area, and you get to see what it's like what it takes to live rurally. You have to really, you want to grow your own food and you want to have kind of a homestead vibe. You really got to keeping everything super clean and open so plants can germinate properly and have enough room to spread around and you get a good crop. So that's the goal this year. I'll take you over there a bit later. We have a goal of putting in 3 more garden beds for specifically vegetables, and what I really want to do is do like an ancestral vegetable garden. So grow things that my great-grandmother, who lived just down there, I'm not gonna show the house because people live in it now, but do what my great-grandmother did and help us kind of hopefully cut down on our grocery bills this summer, hopefully feed the family in that way. So yeah, here we go. So this over here is what we got going on for our new garden beds. We're using that Norwegian method where we put down cardboard and sticks and leaves when it's safe to, for the pollinators to do some really nice vegetable beds. So I'm excited about that. I want to do as many like kind of local vegetables as possible and local flora as well. I'm hoping this is going to be a nice sunny spot. Kind of impossible to tell right now because there's no leaves on the trees, but I will either be happy about it or regret my decision, likely in June. So I'll definitely give you guys an update on that. I'm not going to show the rest of the garden right now because I am not happy about not being able to do a big cleanup, but that is better for our environment. So yeah, is that right? Is that right? Yeah. We're just trying to do the right thing for the pollinators, huh? Yeah. Viv is the best garden helper. Okay, well, that's it for now. I hope the next time I come out here with this camera, it's gonna be sunny and green and warm, so I can start getting rid of these leaves and we can start planting our little seedlings. So, until next time, friends. Bye. So pretty. Hi friends. I've been blessed with a moment to sit down and read. My weekends are usually really busy. I'm usually working on my small business stuff. There's usually not a lot of time for me to sit down and read lately, which is really disappointing, but I'm finally getting the chance. So I wanted to show you what I'm reading right now. This one is Where the Hawthorn Grows. It's about American Druidry and reconnection to Irish roots, and I'm liking it. It has a lot of great references to folkloric texts and ancient Irish manuscripts, and it's good. It does take a little bit of a neo-pagan approach. I'm not really into neo-paganism. It's just not my path, my thing, but I do like that a lot of the information that this author is using is grounded in actual historical and folkloric research, so I appreciate that. And then Irish American Folklore. I'm really excited about this one. I haven't really cracked the cover yet. I've read a little bit of like the introduction and it looks really good. This is more my speed. This is more what I'm interested in. More of like a folk approach to magic and superstition and just reconnection and things like that. So yeah, I love it when I get a moment to sit and chill and read in silence. Just listen to the birds and the house creak around me. Anyway, I'm gonna get back to this. I hope you guys are having a great day and that you get some time, some downtime to sit and read or watch a show or do whatever it is that you enjoy doing that makes you feel like you, because this makes me feel like me. Hi friends. I am going to be reorganizing my bookshelves behind me. As you can see, I have a lot of books. It is going to be a big job. It is a Friday night. I'm not sure how much I'm actually going to get done, but I'm going to try because my weekends are usually pretty busy. So I'm just going to do that until my camera dies. I have a ton of books that I need to reshelve. I have fiction, non-fiction. I want to organize those into sections. I want to make like a folk magic section, a green magic section. You know, I want to really like be able to actually locate books that I want and need, and also transition out some really, really old, let's just say, copies that I have that I think deserve a better home than mine. So I'm going to show a little bit of that. I may pause and show you a bit of the cleanup process, what I'm getting rid of, what I'm keeping, what I'm doing, maybe some new books that my ADHD brain hyperfixates on. We can hyperfixate together. I'm just going to do this until my camera dies. As you can see, my lighting's not great today because it's cloudy and we're going on like 5 o'clock, so I'm gonna do my best and enjoy. I wanted to finally show my changes to my bookshelf that I forgot to update you on, but at this point in the vlog it will just be from one to the other. So here's the bookshelf update. So I've got all fiction here. All fiction. We've got old, we've got first editions. Where is she? Right here. Got some historical fiction. We've got some 20th century writers. The entire Outlander series, of course, because who else am I? And then the rest is pretty much just non-fiction. So I've got theory and historical conversations. I've got Bane, death work, spirit work here. Some North American and Turtle Island folk magics and folklore. here I've got specifically UK folk magics and folklore, European folk magics and folklore, a few more regional work, and then I've got some also regional, this is like gardening and folklore, and a little bit of theory there. Well, not really theory, a little bit of historical writing there. Over here I've got some specifically Irish and Celtic works next to my vintage pins. I've got my altar with some new oils that you can't see yet. Down here we've got some like green work, some herbalism, some backyard pharmacy stuff, and then all of my green witchy works. I'm happy with it. Oh, and then can't forget then my husband's cookbook collection over here where we can see it so we can choose dinner accordingly. Overall, I'm really happy with it, and it's gonna be so much easier to find books now. And I also am just doing away with so many in my collection. Like I said, a lot of Wicca, neo-pagan stuff that just doesn't align with my practice anymore, and really never did. I'm not sure why I had those books. I think just to collect vintage books, pretty much, because a lot of them are vintage and I don't like the contents. So obviously doing away with a lot of those, and now I have room in my collection for more folk magic and regional magics, and it just makes so much more sense. I love it. So yeah, thank you for coming on this journey with me. I can't wait to fill up more books and tell you about them. Philadelphia greeted us with fragrant, beautiful blooms. This was a really magical and fun day. The historic Bartram's Gardens was having a spring festival. So of course we dragged our best friend Martin out to come see the blooms with us. The garden had a mini maker's market where Martin and I found some gorgeous new witchy wall hangings from Secret Gemini. We swung by the plant shop where I've always had success finding incredible, beautiful, and healthy plants that live a very long time. It's me, so I had to touch every single one. My husband found some rare peppers, and of course Martin and I picked out the same plant, a swamp sunflower, to bring home. Had to grab a valerian too while I was at it. Lilacs are a deeply magical plant. They're also my favorite flower. Hi friends, I hope you're doing well. I am testing some new Lunar Leos products that are coming to the shop. Bro, like look at this color. Look at these colors. As you can see, I'm already like using them because I am obsessed with them. So these are my prototypes. I'm working with them, working on intentions, working on honing and targeting what I want them to be for. These have been in the works for months. Our stuff is always in the works for months. We work really hard to make them perfect for the public, and this upcoming collection is so incredibly meaningful for me. It's probably the most meaningful work I've ever done, to be honest. I am just so elated about it. So these are so good, the scents are perfect, the intentions are so on point, so targeted. Already I'm seeing like magical results with them. So I'm just really pumped. I'm really pumped. Okay, this is probably where I'm gonna end this. I hope you've enjoyed this vlog. I love you guys so much. I can't wait to show you what I have in store for this year. See you on the next one. And sign up for the mailing list for Lunar Leos, because then you'll know exactly when all the stuff is coming out. There's gonna be a lot. Love you. Slangafol.